It is the return of the Brad Field Weather Podcast, season number 6, episode 189, underwritten by Action Carpet and Floor Covering of Simsbury, a family-run business that's built for you, and by McAllen Construction, from the first dig to the last nail. I am Dan Lovallo. He is meteorologist Brad Field. And Brad, can you believe it? 6 years we've been doing this podcast.
Dan, we're getting old, but like fine wine.
Right.
I just told you before, with all due respect to our sponsors, Action Carpet and McAllen Construction, who are very generous sponsoring the podcast. We're not doing this for money per se. I mean, this is just we love what we formerly did.
Right.
You know, the television on my part, the radio, and now television on your part.
Right.
And if you've missed out on that, Dan is doing a lot of telecasting now for the Yard Goats on Nesson and Nesson Plus. And I watched you this summer, Dan, and you did an awesome job.
Well, you're very kind. Thank you.
I told you offline and on the phone one day that the fact that you're just a polished broadcast pro shines through. And I wanted to say, Dan, in addition to thanking our sponsors, Kevin Blake and Stephen Blake of Action Carpet in Simsbury, McAllen Construction in Prospect, Connecticut, Christine and Mike McAllen with them. They've been with us since day one.
Right.
And I'm representing McAllen Construction.
See that?
As you can see here. They sent me a cap, and I've got to, Dan, I've got to tell them I need another cap, one for you.
I want one.
And then we've got to get Kevin and Steven to send us some Action Carpet swag.
Absolutely.
But, it's great to be back with you, Dan, on episode 189 of the Brad Field Weather Podcast. And to the listeners, and we're hoping viewers, because we are now recording this not only audio, but we're recording the video as well. And Dan, you can speak to how people will be able to get this. But, thank you for reaching out. Over the past few weeks, I've had a few people contact me via LinkedIn, via Twitter, or X, I should call it, via Facebook. Hey, when are you and Dan starting up the podcast again? Well, Dan, you know me. I have been bored out of my mind. Now, I'm a normal human being. I've loved the weather that we've enjoyed this autumn here in Connecticut. I've loved it. It's been warm. It's been dry. As a semi-retiree, I still do work. People have asked me about this. I still do work for insurance companies and lawyers, Dan, as a consultant. And I just did a trial yesterday in New Britain. Sometimes I appear before juries and stuff. This is fun. If I had, and I loved television too, but if I had known in television that I could make the kind of living that I'm capable of making as a consultant, doing these law cases and appearing in front of juries and stuff, I would have retired from TV sooner. Not that I didn't like TV. I loved it, and TV was great, but I didn't really like getting home at 12:30 in the morning every night.
No, that's not.
So
and it's interesting because not only that, you as being semi-retired also are a high school baseball coach at Granby High School, correct?
Dan, I say to my friends, and you are one of them, it keeps me less old. I can't say it keeps me young because I'm not young anymore, but it keeps me less old, and God, do I love those boys. I mean, they are the nicest young men, maybe I've just mellowed in my older age or whatever, but you would be so proud of me as a coach. I'm as calm as can be. no matter what's going wrong or whatever, I'm just calm as can be. And I think there's something to be said about maturing and also my television career. I mean, everything that possibly could go wrong did go wrong over the course of 37 and a half years. I had sprinklers come on me. I've had microphones not work. I've had things go totally wrong. So I guess you learn how to get around it
Right.
when things are not going quite the way you want them. But I mean, I got to tell you, Dan, Mike Dombrowski is our head coach, and I'm the assistant varsity head coach. But we are looking forward to this year so much. We had 7 freshmen start for us at times last year on the
Wow.
Granby varsity. Now, those 7 freshmen are now 7 sophomores. They've got a year of experience under their belt, and I am not going to predict anything wild prediction this year, like a Class S championship or anything like that. But I think we're going to be noticed. And then in their junior year and their senior year, and hopefully my health and my body hold out enough that I can coach them in their junior and senior years, we are going to be a force to be reckoned
Wow.
with.
Wow.
Now you
That's
write
terrific.
that down.
I will write that
And I'm going
down.
to tell Mike, next time I'll wear the Granby baseball cap to represent them. I was thinking of wearing my Bruins garb today
Oh,
in
boy.
honor of poor Jim Montgomery,
Right.
who's taken the fall for, as I said to you, Dan, the power play with Pasternak and Verbeek. So I always call Marchand Verbeek for some reason. I'm back to my old Whaler time.
Right.
Marchand and Coyle and McAvoy. I'd be ashamed. They
Right.
are last in the NHL in power play.
Yeah.
But Montgomery's taken the fall. And then
Well,
those free agents, as you said.
that they have not come through, and the Bruins piled a lot of money. I mean, they threw over $80 million at those 2 free agents, and I think it all starts at the top with Neely and with Sweeney, the president and the general manager, and of course they're not going to take the fall, and so Montgomery takes the fall. But I'm sure he'll land on his feet. He really did a good job his first 2 seasons as Bruins coach. In fact, he won the Coach of the Year his first year with the Bruins, and he'll end up someplace at some point. Maybe not this year, but certainly next season as a head coach.
Well, I looked at his record with Boston. He had 121 wins and 40 losses.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so he has 3 times as many wins as losses, and he
His
got
problem,
fired.
well, his problem was in the playoffs too. I
Yeah,
mean, he really
true,
did struggle in the
true.
playoffs. He only won one first round and had to struggle to a game 7 in order to do that. But
Right.
things really started coming apart this year. And when they lost that last game to St. Louis, giving up 2 power play goals or 2 shorthanded goals, I mean, you just can't lose like that. And at home, no less. They've lost 3 in a row at home, so that's just not going to work.
No, and the fans were booing.
Yeah, that's right. And the first period,
And
they were
I
booing.
agree with you. They looked lazy. They looked uninspired. So I guess that does come down to the coaching. I
Yeah.
mean, if the Granby baseball team looked like that when they were playing, loafing to first base and not, I think that would point to us as the coaches. So,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
I see
So.
that.
Well, anyway, it's going to be fascinating. We'll have a lot to talk about, I think, when it comes to the Bruins this year. But weather obviously is making news. And Brad, we start out with what really is, as you like to refer to it, as perhaps a climate disaster with this dry weather and the fires we're getting, the brush fires,
Yeah.
whose smoke is infiltrating the entire region.
Well, Dan, you were telling me that, you were smelling the smoke last night. Even it was coming into your car. You could.
Right.
So I will say this before we get to the climate stats. I am looking for a soaking rain to come in tomorrow and tomorrow night and even linger into Friday morning. So I'm not saying, anything we get will put a dent in the drought. It will put a dent in the drought, but the main thing it'll do is extinguish these brush fires and wet down the ground surfaces. So, and perhaps we're seeing the beginning phases of a weather pattern change. So if we do see that weather pattern change, maybe we can sort of put this drought behind us a little bit. But in terms of the climatology, Dan, the numbers are striking. I went back and began looking at September 1st. So I took the month of September, the month of October, and November to date. And we are taping this podcast on Wednesday morning, November 20th. And happy birthday to Susan.
Yes.
Just occurred to me, my wife's birthday was yesterday.
And happy birthday to Sandy.
And Dan's wife's birthday is today. So a very happy birthday, Susan. And thank you for sharing Dan with me once a week so that we can do this podcast. We appreciate it greatly. But going back to September 1st, Dan, during the month of September, we normally get 4.4 inches of rain. We got 0.6 of an inch. That's it.
Wow.
During the month of October, we typically get 4.5 inches of rain. What did we get? 0.5. That's it. So in the month of September, we didn't even get an inch. In the month of October, we didn't even get an inch. In the month of November, we haven't even got an inch. Normally to November 20th, we have 2.12 inches of precipitation. Now, once we get into November, we have to call it precipitation because some of it is melted snow. But we've only had 0.13 inches of rain. So when you add the 0.65 in September, the 0.52 in October, the 0.13 in November, and compare it to what is normal, which is 11.03 inches, we've only had 1.3 in that entire 2 2/3 months time frame. We've only had 1.3 inches of rain, which is 12% of average. Actually, if you're a statistical freak, it's 11.7. But I will tell you that is alarming, Dan. And you know I don't use words like alarming and extreme, and I don't try to hype things up. I really don't. I never have. But, you know, when you've got brush fires burning thousands and thousands of acres of land, I know the biggest one was in New Jersey, but they're nearby. And, you know, I know about the where was the one in Connecticut, the big one, Berlin?
Yes, Berlin, which cost the life of a firefighter. Yes.
Yeah. I that was a couple of weeks back, maybe. But you know, we will get the grounds wetted down tomorrow with the rain coming in. In addition to the dry weather, Dan, the dry weather has something to do with the temperature. And I'm trying to think back to my meteorology courses on this about the respiration of trees and plants and so forth. They take the moisture from the ground and put it into the air, which can cool the air. So when the ground and the soil is completely dry, you can have much milder temperatures. And we have noticed those much milder temperatures in November, having temperature readings in the 80s on 2 occasions.
Right.
The month of September, you can see this, trace this with me. As we've gone through the drought, and the drought has been exacerbated as we've gone through September, then October, now November, the temperatures with that dry soil have gone up too.
Yes.
We were 2 degrees above normal in September, 4 degrees above normal in October, and thus far in November, 7 degrees above average per day. So today, November 20th, the average high is 50. So if you plus 7, that would be we would come out with 57 today. The average low is 32. So if you plus 7, that would be 39. So we have been that disproportionate every single day this month. But just so you know, it should be around 50 today. Should be. In 100 and whatever, 113, 15 years of weather records.
Right.
But it's going to be near 60 today.
Wow.
So it's just it's crazy how this works. But we're going to start seeing signs of things changing tomorrow. I think a very, very beneficial rainfall tomorrow with rain on the order of 1 to 2 inches.
Wow. Now let's go to that area as far as a change in the weather pattern is concerned. What's from an atmospheric standpoint, a meteorological standpoint? What is unfolding leading to this change?
Well, Dan, it's usually, and we are always looking globally at things that will ultimately impact us regionally, which will ultimately impact us in Connecticut. So that's what I'm always doing. You are going to be hearing about this massive storm that is strung out from the Aleutians of Alaska down to off the coast of the Pacific Northwest. They are going to get lambasted on the Pacific Northwest coast with hurricane force winds, with sheets and sheets of rain. The Cascades of Washington and Oregon are going to see prolific snowfall. And this is all going to be happening today, tomorrow, Friday, and even into the start of the upcoming weekend.
Wow.
Huge trough there supporting that storm system. What does a trough do? Think of waves on an ocean. Leads to a ridge. What does the ridge do? Leads to a trough. So we are starting to see that pattern setting up of the trough, ridge, trough. And we need that ridge off to our west to induce a flow down from central and northern Canada, which will bring colder air into our region. Now, there are other things at play too. I mean, Dan, you're always talking about when the sunrise is, the sunset, the length of the day, and how the day is shortening, and then it starts going the other way. After December 21st, we start getting the days get longer and longer. But the days are getting shorter, so we have less input from solar. But at the same time, we're looking at a change in the weather pattern, which is bringing in a colder regime. So we've got these different things at work. But basically what's going to lead to our rain here, which we haven't seen in months. Usually you say weeks, but now I'm going to say months. We are going to get, I would venture to say, we are going to get more rain tomorrow, November 21st, than we got in all of September, all of October, and all of November to now combined. So plan on a rainy day.
Well, that's good news. Now, some of the weather blogs I'm reading, they're writing about the Greenland block returning. Now, have you seen anything along those lines?
Well, Dan, you're teasing me here because I want to talk to you about the winter forecast. And people, as I've gotten older and retired, I've become more lazy, maybe. It's a lot of work making the winter forecast, but I am in process of making the winter forecast. Now, if the Greenland block returns, as you're teasing me that you're reading that it will, have you read the blog about the bookend winter?
I have not.
All right. Well, basically what this guy means, and I'm not going to start naming names yet because I'm not prepared in full to talk about the winter forecast. So I don't want to do it until I'm ready. But this bookend winter would mean a very strong start. So perhaps a white Thanksgiving, I doubt it, but perhaps I do see the possibility of getting some snow accumulating by the first couple of days of December. So, we can see pretty much readily in our computer models that come out every 6 hours. There's been some hint that there will be snow cover in Connecticut by early December. Now, I'm not forecasting that by any means, but I'm saying it's a possibility. But this bookend winter means a strong start. So a strong start, which could imply a white Christmas. A dull middle, like January, February, not much going on. Then a strong end, March, furious March. Yeah. So, we could be looking at this bookend winter. That was one possibility. Now, the Greenland block, Dan, to answer your question more fully, if that does occur, what its main impact is in doing in Connecticut is blocking the flow upstream. So in other words, if we have a storm coming up the coast and it just comes on its merry way up the coast and continues up into the Canada Maritimes, we get maybe a 6-8 hour period of decent snow and then it stops and ends and that's it. Now, if there's a Greenland block, it comes up the coast and then it has a heck of a time moving any further because it's essentially moving into offensive linemen blocking it, trying to say, you can't come up here. So a lot of times those storms sit off the coast of Nantucket or Cape Cod. So instead of getting a little 6-hour period of snow, it will snow for maybe a 24-hour period. Mm-hmm. So instead of getting a 6-inch snowstorm, that's how we get our blockbusters. We get our blockbusters when we get the storms coming up the coast and they run into this Greenland block. It's called the negative NAO, or that's its technical term, North Atlantic Oscillation. So that's the meteorological term for it. But the Greenland block is sort of empirically known. But if this does happen, that can lead to some prolific storms in the wintertime. Not saying it will, but you brought it up. so we're going to pin this on you if that happens.
I'm the troublemaker.
All right.
What about on the weather map? What does it currently look like on the weather map? And again, we are putting this all together on November the 20th.
Well, Dan, we've got a dual system heading toward us right now. As we look at the midday on Wednesday, November 20th, low pressures near Detroit, Michigan, and a secondary low is starting to form over Delaware. Now, by this evening, that tandem low will have moved to Buffalo, and the secondary is forming over northern Virginia, Maryland border region, Chesapeake Bay, that area. By Thursday morning, the storm has consolidated into one center, and it is off the central Jersey shore. So midway through New Jersey and right off the shore, that's where the low will sit tomorrow morning, Thursday morning, November 21st. By Thursday evening, this thing's crawling north. It's over Long Island. Now, the upper level wind flow is what steers storms. It appears, the computer models that I'm looking at appear like the upper level low. Think of it as a whirlpool of air in the upper atmosphere. Seems to be capturing this upper low. So it goes from the Jersey Shore to Long Island, then it moves northwest toward Binghamton, New York. So it's still in our area on Friday morning. But this upper level low pressure is very cold air in the upper atmosphere. So even though the storm is cutting to our west, which normally implies that we would get rain, totally rain, I do think as this process occurs that there'll be enough cold air aloft that the precipitation mixes down the colder air. So, especially in the hilly terrain of western Connecticut, like up through, let's say, north of Danbury. So, up through New Milford and Kent and Sherman and on up into Salisbury and that area, they could have, and I'm predicting this, that they will have their first snowflakes of the year on Friday. I'm not saying that they're going to stick. I'm not saying that. But I think that there will be snow in the air.
Wow.
You may see some snow in the air in Torrington. I mean, I can't rule it out that in most of Connecticut, interior Connecticut, we see some snow mixed in with the rain on Friday morning. But it's more of a, well, this is what's coming type of thing than anything to worry about. I mean, there's no way going to be school cancellations or anything like that. I mean, I just think it's more of a sort of a novelty and a like, here we go. You know, this is the season that we're moving into. So that low gets captured by the upper low. And as I said, some snow possible mixing in New England, including the western high hills of Connecticut. By Saturday morning, the whole upper low and surface low move up into the Canada Maritimes. Now, when it goes by, we're going to start getting a brisk northwest flow into the region. So I do think it's going to be windy over the weekend, making it feel quite a lot colder. Temperatures will be in the 40s by day with the wind blowing. It's going to be blustery, I think is a good term. I think it'll be sort of a blustery weekend. Sunday, a major storm up into the Canada Maritimes. It's going to be windy, blustery day. Dan, maybe you can answer this for me. Do the Patriots play at home on Sunday? Do you know that? I know they play Miami. But I believe they're in Foxborough.
Yeah.
I'm not sure.
Yeah, because I think you're right. Well, I'll do a little checking while you continue.
Because last week in Foxborough, very good game against the Rams, but it was warm as can be. I mean, it was the most beautiful autumn day. But this one is not going to be so nice. If you're going out to the game on Sunday, if it happens to be in Foxborough, it's
they're
going to
in
be
Miami.
It is. Thank you,
They're in
Dan.
Miami,
It's
yeah.
going to be windy and cold. Temperatures maybe 40 to 45, and the flag's going to be blowing like crazy. So
Well, it's interesting you say this because I said to Susan, we were watching the game, I said, when was the last time you could remember, in this case it was Coach Mayo, the head coach of the Patriots, in a game being played in mid-November in Foxborough, walking the sidelines in shirt sleeves. But that's what Coach May was wearing, shirt sleeves.
I recall. I recall. Now, would Bill have been out there in a hoodie? With his cut off sleeves, probably.
That kind of a hoodie, right?
Yeah. But then, Dan, next week is important because, and I wanted to point out, this was your brilliance. So I give credit where it's due. But we're doing the podcast today on Wednesday. We're doing it next week on Wednesday because Dan said, hey, Thursday is Thanksgiving. So we're going to do Wednesday this week, Wednesday next week. Then we're switching the podcast to Thursday for the rest of the season. Right. And then, as has been our want, what we do is, like if we're doing this on Wednesday and say a major snowstorm is coming on Monday, we will do a storm-specific podcast. So expect your weekly podcasts. And if the podcast is accurate and holding, and usually they are, and nothing's gone wrong, we'll be back next week. But if a big storm is coming there, tune back in because we will update you with a storm-specific podcast.
Correct.
Oh, and I wanted to say Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday as we lead up to Thanksgiving next week and, folks traveling. And, I know I have to go get the turkey on Wednesday. My wife has secured our turkey, but I have to go drive to get it and so forth. So the weather after this big storm goes by Thursday, Friday, blustery over the weekend, but Monday and Tuesday of next week, briefly milder. We have a dry warm front come through. I don't think we'll get anything more than maybe a sprinkle at the very most. And then Wednesday, a cold front comes through with a reinforcing cold front in the Great Lakes. So my first look at Thanksgiving, even though it's more than a week away right now, 8 days away, is windy and cold. I think the high will be about 40 and the wind will be about 30 miles per hour. So it will be a blustery, cold day. You'll come in and want to warm up near the fire and eat your turkey. So,
Well, and people going to the Thanksgiving Day football games, whether it be on Wednesday night or Thursday morning, they're going to have to bundle up, aren't they?
absolutely full winter gear. Get it out of the cedar chest, because I'll tell you what, we're going to need the winter gear very, very soon. I see it. It's in my forecast. You'll see in a minute.
Okay, well, on that note, let's, and again, we're putting this together on Wednesday, November 20th. What does the immediate forecast look like?
All right, Dan, there's some sunshine out there. I see it out my weather window here. Sunshine now kind of diminishing as we go through the afternoon, increasing clouds, but it's nice out. 56 to 62 this afternoon. I mean, and again, the normal high today is 50. So though it's cooler than it's been, it still is really mild. 6 to 12 degrees above average today. Again, tonight, thickening clouds with rain developing by daybreak. If you have any evening plans, leave the umbrella at home. I'm talking the rain beginning 4, 5, 6 a.m., something like that. And then through the day Thursday, the 21st, a beneficial rain. Much colder, temperature 46 to 52 degrees, freshening northeast wind tomorrow. Rain tomorrow night, mainly in the evening, temperatures in the 30s. I cannot discount that there could be some wet snowflakes mixing in. You know, the Goshens of the world, the Norfolks of the world, the Kents of the world, the Heartlands of the world. That could happen. Friday morning, rain showers around, cold rain showers, except mixed with snow in the western hills. Possibly other parts of Connecticut, but right now I'm predicting the western hills. Afternoon highs on Friday in the 40s. Storm goes by, it's up in Canada. The theme of the weekend is windy, Dan. Partly sunny on Saturday, windy, 46 to 52. So even though it's around seasonal, it'll feel colder than, and especially because it's been so warm, it'll feel cold. Sunday, mostly sunny and windy, 46 to 52. Monday and Tuesday of next week, low to mid 50s both days. Lots of sunshine both days. Dry roads for holiday travel, holiday errands both days. Wednesday, mixed clouds and sun, chilly, temperatures in the 40s. The wind picking up. Thanksgiving Day, clouds and some sun. You might see a few snowflakes flitting by. Windy, 36 to 42. Excuse me. And that's the Thanksgiving outlook, Dan. First blush. We will update the podcast next Wednesday.
Yes.
Give folks a little bit better idea. But right now, for the holiday, it looks like clouds, some sun, slight chance of a flurry, windy, and 36 to 42.
Well, there you have it. And it's going to start feeling a lot like Thanksgiving and Christmas around here, essentially, is what you're saying. Is that correct?
That's correct. This is one of the latest Thanksgivings.
Right.
It's been a family tradition of mine and my extended family here in Connecticut that the day after Thanksgiving is the day we go and shop for our Christmas tree and cut it down,
Right.
either that Friday or that Saturday. this will be among the latest
Yes.
that if you get the Christmas tree late in the weekend, this weekend, it will be December 1st.
Right.
This
That's right.
the weekend after
Right.
Thanksgiving, I mean. So it's about as late as Thanksgiving can be.
Well, it is. And as a matter of fact, I mean, Thanksgiving's on the 28th. That's less than a month before Christmas. That gives you an idea how late
Yeah,
on the calendar
yeah.
Thanksgiving is. So, but anyway, Brad, on that note, our first podcast of the new season is in the books. To our podcast audience, to you and Sandy, have a great weekend, and we will talk again next Wednesday.
And to you and especially Susan, a very happy birthday, Dan, to Susan and to our podcast audience. And if this YouTube video or whatever comes out great, tell your friends about it, that you can listen to Brad and Dan babbling on and having some fun and talking some sports and stuff. And I wanted to tell you, Dan, and I know I told you, but I want to tell our audience, I had the nicest dinner. My wife and I had the nicest dinner with Tom and Nancy Monahan. And Tom was one of my very, very best friends at Channel 30. And he's up into his 80s now, but we just laughed for hours. He is such a nice man. He wanted me to give you his kind regards because I told him I'd love to have him as a guest
Yes,
on our
we
podcast
can do it.
sometime.
It can be done.
Just to let people know, how he's doing and catch
Yes.
up with him. But what a fine gentleman.
Well, no question about that. And Tom and I did some, when I was in radio, he would be an occasional guest, as you were, but we also did some forums together on the radio over at the state capitol, and he's terrific. And I'm so glad to hear that he and his wife are doing well. All right, my friend, we'll do it again next week. And also a big thank you to our underwriters for the podcast. That would be McAllen Construction. McAllen Construction, servicing the entire state from the first dig to the last nail. And by Action Carpet and Floor Covering of Simsbury, a family-run business that's built for you. Be well, my friend.
You too, Dan.